Day one, take one. We're going to do this in one take. It's going to be incredible. Hi there, welcome back. My name is Jonathan, and I'm Director of Programs. Welcome back if you've seen the previous videos, assuming that you have. If you haven't, hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm Director of Programs with Next Gen Men.
Hello. I am Ali, Youth Program Coordinator at Next Gen Men.
And I am Stephanie, the Manager of Youth Programs and Partnerships at Next Gen Men.
And this is video 3 of a 5-part series exploring how to build safe and impactful online communities with young people. And, if you're new to it, we invite you to go back to the introductory session where we explain, who we are, what we do, and the premise of this learning resource. If you've been with us for the last couple of videos, welcome back, and let's dive in. This is our piece on what we're calling the system of engagement, which is one of 4 different systems that represent our systems of care model in terms of online community building with young people. I'm going to jump in with an introduction on what do we mean by the system of engagement, how does it connect to gender-based violence prevention. Then we're going to dive into some of the specific tools and practices that we use to make that happen. Any thoughts before I get started from the two of you?
Nothing from me.
Woo! That's it.
One of the things that we did with the systems of care model was connect it to the Circle of Courage, which is a model outlined, proposed, created, shared by Dr. Martin Brokenleg, who is a researcher in the United States. And it comes from an indigenous way of knowing that represents these different core needs of young people in order for them to flourish. One of those core needs is a spirit of mastery. The spirit of mastery is about that inborn thirst for learning that all young people carry, that desire to become good at something, to create capability within themselves, and to be able to say, I can succeed. That's the spirit of mastery. So one of the pillars in our work at Next Gen Men is about finding effective entry points. And that's where we see a direct connection to this spirit of mastery. The idea of finding effective entry points is really about, it is a little bit about meeting them where they are, but it's about doing that really well, right? That's the effective point of the effective entry point. And it's relevant for 2 different reasons. The first is that we're building entry points to our community. If you think about it, it's kind of intimidating. I mean, I've experienced this myself. It's kind of intimidating to join a new community, right? And to join a new space. It can be hard to figure out exactly how you belong and how you can contribute. And so I guess I'll give an example really quickly. So for example, at school, you don't just try out for sports in general, right? You try out for a specific team. Let's just say basketball, for example. You're trying out for a basketball team. And when you go to that tryout, you're going to run a few different drills. There'll be layups, passing, shooting. You kind of know how to contribute to that space and to that team. And even once you make it onto the team, you have a specific role within that team, right? In terms of how you play and how you contribute. And so that's maybe just a bit of an example of what do we mean by offering young people specificity and in terms of how to become part of the community. It gives a bit of clarity on how to participate, and that makes it easier to take the risk to actually do so. Secondly, it's an entry point to gender-based violence prevention, which is one of the deep is maybe a weird adjective to give to it, but it's one of the deeply held, elements to our mission of what we do at Next Gen Men. Gender-based violence prevention work happens best when it's not hypothetical and when it's grounded in the day-to-day realities of the people who are engaging in that learning and that training. There's a reason, for example, that we talk about when we work with middle school boys, we often talk about toxic group chats rather than just bystander intervention on the street or at a bus stop. We get to where are they grappling with these norms and expectations, with these situations that they're called into that bystander, but we figure out where does it specifically happen for them, and that's where we talk about it. And we really avoid having just this sort of hypothetical, conversation. So that's what we do in our school-based work. It's about gaining a sense of confidence, right? With positive masculinity, with feminism, with mental health promotion or gender-based violence prevention. To get that sense of confidence, well, that's going to take growth and pushing yourself. It's going to take learning, right? And being aware of where you're at and what's going on around you. It's going to take making mistakes, right? And having people kind of reflect that back to you. Like those are all the different elements to gaining that sense of capability in terms of contributing to this movement of gender-based violence prevention and positive masculinity. In order to engage in that growth as a young person, especially as a young boy, you need to know that you're going to be held with respect, right? You need to know that it's going to be interesting, and it might even be fun, right? To engage with, with those things. And one of the ways that we signal that it's worthwhile is through that system of engagement. So the system of engagement is kind of a precursor to the system of connection and empowerment, that in order to find that space of belonging and to feel that sense of leadership, you have to first offer boys a way to engage. And that's what we do. That's my soapbox snapshot of introducing what we're talking about with the system of engagement.
So moving from our system of safety and moving into our system of engagement, we really conceptualized it as being 3 aspects. The first being bots, which sounds really scary and scientific, but it's really in general, all it is sort of automated programs that are within our Discord community that help us with various tasks and functionality. And we will jump into describing a bit of what those are in a second. The second is our interest-based channels. And that really is specifically our various aspects of the community that people are able to join and chat in that are focused on specific things. So for example, photography, or sports and fitness, or music. If you think about the server as the house, the various rooms in this house or community center where conversations are happening, that's sort of what our channels are. And then lastly, our events. So we have gaming events. We're playing all sorts of things, Valorant, for example, non-gaming events, and then our in-person events as well. So we'll jump into that in a second, but I'll pass it to Jonathan to talk about the very scientific bots of our community.
I'm going to jump back in and start with this. So in Discord, you can leverage native tools that integrate within your server, and they can be used automatically. They can be used manually. They can help build engagement on your server. And that's something that we've been doing for a long time. It's sort of like my analogy. I don't know if the basketball team analogy really made sense, but this one I think really does. It's sort of like apps on your phone. Okay. So just like the apps on your phone, some of them do a whole bunch of things and some of them do one specific thing. Some of them are free and some of them are premium. Some of them are utilities, some are games, some are manual, some are automatic. So there's this whole range of apps. And just like on your phone, there's an app store, on Discord, there's an app directory. It looks like this. Okay. We first started using bots because young people told us to, based on their experiences with bots on other servers. We've used a lot of them over the years. We've used them for different things, but essentially I'd say we've used them for 2 main purposes. The first is administrative tasks, and the second is fostering engagement. So admin includes things like handling registration forms. It includes things like announcing new members, tracking members' birthdays, that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing that, you could do, but an automated bot can do more consistently, once it's configured, can do it even better than you. Engagement includes things like gamification, so leveling with experience, which I'll talk about in a moment. Achievement-based badges based on specific milestones. Engagement includes things like prompting new discussions, notifying new members that we're live on Twitch. Twitch.tv/NextGenMen if you're interested, go check it out. We've tried a lot of different bots. Since I'm talking about it and since, we're here to share our expertise, I'll say we've mostly centered our work on a bot called Me6. Me6 is one of a few different bots that aims to be an all-in-one sort of comprehensive bot solution. And we use it for almost everything, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So, one specific use case in a moment. We also have a couple of other bots that perform specialized features that Me6 can't. So, for example, we have a customized NGM bot that does really specific things for our own community. And it was actually programmed by one of our youth members who's now a paid staff. We also have a question of the day bot called QOTD. We have a Spotify integration called Spoticord, and there's a few others that do, again, specific tasks that Meeseeks can't. Importantly, though, they are used for specific purposes, right? So it's not a sprawling list of like, we have every bot that we could find in the, and we just felt like adding, like they perform specific tasks. It's more like a toolkit of specialized tools than anything else. Before I jump into my, my story example, did I miss anything on apps and bots, or did I hit the nail on the head?
I think the nail was hit right on the head.
Nailed it. Okay, well, I just wanted to share one specific example, which is leveling. And I wanted to share it because, a lot of the bots, there's like a very clear, I don't know what to call this, but like it exists in real life. So like Spoticord, for example, you just turn on, a Bluetooth speaker, like birthday, that birthday piece of the Meeseeks bot, like you can have a calendar, right? That like, so, most of them have like, it just, it has an exact kind of feature in real life. And this leveling sort of feature, I was like, I think it's kind of relatively unique to, like, I don't see this kind of gamification of engagement happening in real life. Like, I think it is kind of unique to this online space. And that being said, it's really common in online communities to have this gamification feature. So essentially, this is within Meeseeks, but a lot of other bots do it. There's levels. And what Meeseeks does is it randomly generates between 50 and 25 experience points based on every minute that a young person spends messaging or on a voice channel on our server. As an aside, just within the top 5 members within our community, we have 7.7 million experience points that have already been generated. So just a sort of snapshot, what we're talking about when we're talking about engagement. What happens is every time they go to a new level, that gets sort of announced to them just in the channel where they are messaging. A little message gets sent by the Meeseeks bot. Hey, you just reached this level. Congratulations. Little trophy emoji. When they reach level 10, for example, they're switched from the newcomers role to the members role. And that comes with some additional benefits, such as being able to bypass Discord slow mode feature, being able to change the color of their username, and a few other features like that. And all of that happens automatically. It doesn't have anything to do with manually managing whatsoever from the admin team. And lastly, just to say, young people are paying attention to this. We see them every now and then. They'll check what rank they're at, what level they're at, and that kind of thing. It is something that they pay attention to. And there's that gamification, leveling up experience that obviously is very familiar for a lot of young people, and especially adolescent boys who play a lot of video games. So that's my snapshot of apps and bots. That's our first piece of the system of engagement. I will now stop talking. I've been talking a lot, and I'll pass it to my colleague.
So we know that an effective entry point, like Jonathan was saying, is using something familiar to them. So leveling up is a concept that, especially in youth who are familiar and interested in gaming, this is something that they're interested in, they want to take part in. And another way that we do this is our interest-based channels, because we know that young people are different and unique. And one kid might be obsessed with rock climbing and hiking, and another might be incredibly interested in building their own computer. And so we have like a full range of experience and interests within the space. And so really what we've been focused on thinking about is how can we create a space that's, meeting all those different interests and meeting the unique complexity of all the young people that are coming into our space. And so if I pull from my community center physical space analogy before, we're imagining a physical building, a community center, the rooms of those buildings that are having different activities or conversations are our channels. There are 2 kinds of channels. There are text-based channels, which are specifically what I'm going to jump into in a second. And then there are also our voice channels, which our events take place, and Ali will talk about that in a second. But really, this sort of, our text-based channels we have so many of them, and they've evolved over the years. But an example of these would be like our photography space, our foodies space, where people are posting what they're cooking or baking. And we have some amazing bakers in the house, including Ali, I saw those cookies that you made. Um, and we also have our music space, which is something I frequent in a lot because I love playing music and listening to music. And so those are just some examples of the spaces that we have. In order for us to have engagement in these spaces and to meet the interests of the young people in our space, the first thing that happens when young people join our community is they're greeted by these questions. And this is sort of the place where they get assigned roles, it's called, based off of their interest. And so within this sort of question space, when they first join, we're asking a range of questions from, what systems are they playing games on? What games are they interested in? What sort of subjects at school are they interested in? What kind of music do they listen to? Do they play any musical instruments? What sports are they playing or that they're interested in or they watch? And then we also have demographic questions as well that we also add. And the reason that we do this as, sort of step one of them actually joining into the space after that screening and system of safety piece is, first of all, it helps us understand the interests of our members because it's easily attached to their user, right? So those roles, if they say that they're interested, for example, in basketball, they get a basketball role. And we can easily see who is interested in basketball and who is not interested in basketball, which is really helpful for us. So if there's a conversation that's coming, we can know who to message. The second reason is it creates pingable roles, which really what that means is, say this basketball conversation is happening, we can just type at basketball, and anybody who is interested in basketball who has indicated that they're interested in basketball. I've said basketball so many times. I've never said basketball so many times in my life, and I love it. But they get pulled into the chat and notified that, and that's also helpful for our events, which I'm sure Ali will touch on as well. So we have a variety of our interest-based channels, like I've already mentioned a bunch of them, but we have books and movies, for example. We have tech space where those computer builders are hanging out. Another space we have is art space, another one of my favorites. And this is a place where people are able to share the visual art that they are creating or writing. We have people that have written poetry or written just blurbs about life that are like very philosophical and beautiful. And we also have a couple amazing visual artists. And so the one that's going to be on your screen right now is from one of our members. And it's a painting that he completed. And I just think it's so beautiful. And really this space is a place where they can post their drawings or their writing or whatever it might be. People ask questions, they're able to talk about it together, talk about color and all these different things, and it's just so fantastic. Another great example of our interest-based channels is in our sports and fitness channel. Recently, I shared that I had done a reformer Pilates class for the first time ever and that it was hard. And some somebody responded, one of our young people responded that Pilates can't be that hard. And I was like, oh yeah. And I created a suggestion for an event night, which, brings to a separate channel where people can vote yes or no to ideas to implement in the server. So I said, let's do a Pilates night. If it can't be hard, then everybody should want to partake. And so we did have a group of people, and it got upvoted way more than it got downvoted. So this Wednesday I'm running a Pilates event. We're going to see how that goes, and it's going to be great. But that was an example of what happens in our interest-based channels, all sorts of conversations focused on different things like cars and food and art and music and technology and computers and all these different things. And it's also the space where we get to promote our various events that are focused on these specific interests. And with that segue, I'll pass it to you, Ali.
It's so funny you mentioned basketball like 1,000 times. The reason why it's funny is that we were able to offer like Raptors tickets to a few youth on the server. And if it wasn't for that basketball role, I wouldn't have had Toronto youth be able to DM me. It's like, hey, I want to watch the game. How do I get these tickets? This, that, or whatever. So like we mentioned it a ton. The reason why it's important is that it's like the easiest and most efficient and honestly the most, thoughtful way we can engage with these young people. So we have opportunities, dynamic opportunities or adaptive opportunities can be done with adjusting our roles or our channels according to the interests of the young people in our community. But speaking of events, we I've like talked to like other people in like different like community centers and and things and in social work at school as well. And I talk about, oh yeah, like I'm running an event tonight. Like I remember in one of my classes, it was like at the end of the school year, and my professor like had brought like a bunch of chocolates, and then there's like a whole bunch left. And then she was like, oh, what, like I know you work with youth a lot. Like why don't you just bring it to your event tonight? And I was like, I can't really pass chocolates like virtually, but I appreciate the thought. You can keep them. Not really much I can do with it. But that's kind of really what it is. So our events, if you want to imagine it, are like a virtual events, right? We also do in person. I'll get into that a little bit. But Jonathan, if you don't mind popping up the event list, if you scroll through it, you also see Stephanie's Pilates event in there as well too. But our events are honestly a really cool opportunity to show mastery as well too, right? These events are moments where these youth who are coming back from like a very hard, stressful day to hang out with members within their community, just play around. We're playing games like Valorant. One game that we really adapted is Baldur's Gate 3 as well. It's because we wanted to run a D&D campaign, but we didn't have a DM. So Baldur's Gate was like a really great way for us to adapt into that interest and the need that they wanted to have a campaign going. And this is something we do routinely. We do weekly. We have recurring events such as Fortnite. And the reason why we do this is that it's an opportunity for this youth to show up, show off their skill. Some of them are grinding rank, so they want to show how they've improved over the weeks. And it's an opportunity for us members to be on voice call, to have these moments of greatness, of connection, of just like a chill, like a vibey place. I was playing Fortnite, I think it was last night, and I was talking to this youth, and I was just joking around. I'm, for context, a terrible Fortnite player. And I was like telling him, like, dude, we gotta play rank, we gotta grind, we gotta go, like we gotta hit like platinum this night or whatever. And I get you, this kid is 15. He was like, dude, I kind of play video games just to hang out, just to chill. Like I don't like to be so intense and all, like grinding like that. And it's amazing. Like we have these spaces, we have these events to really just do that, just to hang out, just to relax, just to chill. And it could be a whole range of things. We could do video games, we could do homework help for those who need to like study up for an exam, or we can do like an art-based event that Stephanie runs weekly on Mondays. But beyond our virtual events, we also do in-person events. And the reason why we do in-person events is that as you build up relationships online, there builds like some sort of excitement. There's some connections that are being built as well too. So to have an in-person event is an opportunity for you to bring your online life into an in-person connection. It's kind of like hard to imagine what that means or what that looks like. So I'll kind of explain it in maybe an anecdote of like where I've experienced it. But back this summer, I went to Calgary for the first time, and our Next Time on Alliance, a big population of the youth are from Calgary. And at this point, I probably know this youth for like a year and a half, but I've never seen them in person. Like I've only ever had event nights with them. I've only had text messages with them, maybe DMs and things of those sorts. So when we all hung out at a video game cafe, it was like a very surreal moment, right? It was not even just surreal for the youth, it's surreal for me as well too. Like, oh my goodness, like you're this, and this, and like I know this about you, I know that about you, I know like your interest in Dungeons and Dragons, I know your interest in Super Smash, like I know like so many different things, and it's the first time I can like see you in person. So having these one-time in-person events is a great opportunity to create those connections and to have like kind of tangibility to it. And then we also do recurring in-person events, such as like a Raptors game, where we'll find Toronto youth that we've known for quite some time and been in connection with them for a little bit, and have those events with them to spend that routine and regular moments with them. So these events are an opportunity for us to not just say we're just random people living on this server just texting each other back and forth, but we're also on voice call. We're also talking about deep things. We're also having these conversations, and there's a lot of authenticity in these voice chats as well too. I have some other thoughts. Well, no, I don't have any other thoughts.
I have a thought.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I just was thinking about your bedtime stories event, and I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about that as an example.
Yeah, I don't know what inspired the event. I'm trying to think. I think what it was, I've like had a couple of youth who like tell me they have like insomnia, or like they've had like difficulties to like sleep, or they have like some stresses that's preventing them to sleep. And of course, like I'm not saying a bedtime story to a 16-year-old is going to help them magically fall asleep, but it was like a moment where I'm like, hey, I like these youth are telling me they're struggling in something, and like there's always like this practice that you have with like very very young people of reading them a bedtime story. So what I did once is that, or I think I did twice now, where I like went to like my public library and I picked up like a whole bunch of like Dr. Seuss like rhyming books, and for an event, literally I just sat in front of this camera, literally in this room, and I was just reading the bedtime stories. And these are like 14, 15, 16-year olds like who were like are like, what the hell is this? Like, what is going on? Like, I'm too old for this. But like when they're in that moment, they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is kind of cool. Like Ali's literally rapping to us right now. So that's like kind of like the beauty of an event night, is that you can literally do whatever you want. Like it's kind of difficult to do a bedtime story in person with like 20 youth because the engagement is just gonna be all over the place. But in an online space, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a little bit of magic to it or whatever it might be. But having that space where youth can kind of like multitask or do whatever they need to, but then also be in a voice call just to chat or hear a bedtime story is also like a moment of like a peace or tranquility or just love and compassion incorporated with it as well.
We kind of run like we find the balance between, and we encourage you to do this with like think about this and talk about this with your youth, like some things that are familiar, right? So when a new person is inquiring about joining the server, we don't tell them, you know, we run bedtime stories. Like we say, dude, like bro, you know, as they say, we play Fortnite, like we play Minecraft, like, you know, and that's about that effective entry point. The entry point is Fortnite. That's familiar. And then it's within that space, that sense of familiar. Okay, I understand. I could join and play, you know, play some squads, play some blitz, like whatever it might be on Fortnite. And then there's this other stuff going on, right? There's whether it's a bedtime story or that mental health support space or, you know, a thoughtful conversation about rejection with a girl that somebody liked. Like that is where the other stuff starts to take shape. And so a lot of the events are about that familiar, you know, Baldur's Gate, Fortnite, you know, and then some of the stuff is just like a little bit different. And that little bit different signals there's a little bit more going on here. I said this to some kid who was interested in joining last week. It was funny. He actually said to me, he's like, why should I join? Like, what's in it for me, basically? Like, he actually like phrased it like that. And I was like, listen, and I explained, you know, we play Fortnite with that kind of thing. And I said, the thing that's different, you know, is because there's a lot of other games. He said, okay, sorry, I'm explaining. I haven't told this story before, so I'm explaining it in a weird way. He said, okay, so it's essentially spending time with people and playing games. And I said, mostly yes, but I would add to that, it's spending time with people your age that you trust and playing games that deepen connection. And the point that I was making to him was like, you know, there's a Call of Duty server, you know, I'm sure, that is also about spending time with people and playing games. But the way they're doing that is not the way that we're doing it, right? And so I just wanted to signal to him we're doing something slightly different. And that's what some of our events, that's some of our interest-based channels, and even some of our bots, like that's what they all do. I know another thing that we talked about in the preparation for this session was that things change, right? The bots themselves have changed. The channels, like, I don't know if you noticed, in the channels and roles section, it says that we have 181 channels. We don't have 181 channels. That's because we don't delete the channels that we discontinue because they are helpful for metrics and that kind of thing. I don't know how many active channels that we have, but what 181 represents is 181 attempts. And the majority of those don't exist anymore. And so, for example, there used to be an anime club channel. There's now a books and movies channel. You know, there used to be like a pet pics photo. There's now a photography channel. And so those things have shifted over the years based on what young people are interested in, and what they are interested in ebbs and flows, you know, and changes as they grow, as the community changes and grows as well. But the important thing is that it's always responsive to what they are interested in, what they're looking for. And so for me, for example, I'm not that interested in, like, I have Apple products. I'm not that interested in building a PC. And so I wouldn't make, you know, myself a tech channel. We do have a tech channel on the server because that's what the young people on our server wanted. Okay. And so that's the idea of just like following, you know, where young people, like a young person who's interested in like in cooking one moment might be interested in Muay Thai the next, like that kind of thing. We're always responsive to. I have one more thought to bring us to a close, but do either of you have other thoughts? Cool. Having said that, now I forgot my thought.
have a thought.
Go for it.
Maybe it will help you with your thought. Um, Really, this like system of engagement is talking about how we get people in the door and how we get them to start coming back, right? That is really the focus of this point. If we don't get them to repeatedly come back, if they're not interested, if they're not building connections or relationships with other people, they're not finding other friends that have similar interests as them, the likelihood that they're going to continue to engage in the space is quite low. And so that is why we're really, really focused on creating things and focusing on those effective entry points that they keep coming back, because in order for them to have deep relationships or to go to that mental health space, they need to build trust with us and with everybody else in the space as well as, I mean, and really with us as well as the ones that are holding the space, right? And so I would just say that this is really the focus point, and moving into system of connection is really that point where we're seeing those repeated people coming back and the magic that happens when they are coming back and talking and sharing with one another in these really amazing, vulnerable ways.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So that'll bring us to a close for the system of engagement. Thank you for listening. Thank you for thinking about engaging with the young people that you work with online. And stay tuned for further learning tips, tools, and resources. That's it from us for now. Bye from Jonathan. I don't remember how we sign off these things. So bye from me. Okay, great.